Trading card games are often described as lifestyle games in that they can really be a hobby that you can sink your teeth into. In that there's the game, which is exciting, and often you're playing in tournaments, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, playing with friends. But there's also the element of building decks, collecting the cards. It can, when you look at it, be like, oh, there's these can be expensive, or there's a lot to know, or especially some of these games with 20 years of history. It can be a little bit intimidating when if you haven't already started playing. So to sort of show us the waters of trading card games, we have Jim, who is a Magic the Gathering judge and also a sort of veteran of Melbourne game stores. Jim, how are you going?
I'm doing well, Liam. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well as well. We'll start off with Magic because that's the game I've played for the longest, and also you're a judge, so you're very familiar with it. Can you tell me a little bit about it? If someone hadn't played Magic, why would they want to play Magic?
Magic is the oldest of the TCGs that are still popular. It came out in 1993. They've got their 30th anniversary coming up, actually, in a whole big celebration for that. But it's also, it's stood the test of time, and it really appeals to competitive players, casual players, whether you're playing at your local store every week, whether you're just playing at home with your local friend group, or whether you just want to collect the pretty cards and have them sit in a folder and never have them played. It's got varying levels of complexity. Games can take anywhere from 5 minutes up to an hour and a half, depending on which rule set you follow, and there's lots of different ways to play the game.
I think that's what I found, what I enjoyed as I was playing through the decade-long thing of often when you start, you're playing standard, which is sort of the year or two of cards, and then sort of, okay, this sort of rotates, and you've got to keep up to date. So if you're playing a lot, it's good, and then you sort of go, I can go deeper in different ways of playing with different groups of playing in the different stores of like, certain stores focus on this format or this format, and you can find a sort of community that you like, which is kind of cool. And I like that. There's that element of you can pick and choose how you want to play. But that's not the only trading card game, is it?
That's true. There's plenty of other trading card games out there. And I'd like to talk about a couple of the big ones, starting with Pokemon TCG. So unlike Magic, it's built on pop culture. If you haven't heard of Pokemon, I don't know why how you got this video if you haven't watched any Pokemon. It's got TV show, it's got cards, it's got video games, comics, the whole lot. It's simpler than Magic. All of the decisions you make are done on your own turn. You don't do anything on your opponent's turn. It's sort of their turn to play, and all you do is put in your next guy when your current one goes away. It's also really good for collectors. They have a lot of different art styles, different foil frames and shinies and patterns, and the collectors really love this game.
Well, we certainly saw that during the pandemic. There was that huge spike in everyone clamoring for Pokemon cards for a little while.
Something about Post Malone buying a Charizard and wearing it around his neck or something. Yeah. But it's also actively marketed towards children. It's designed to be a game that children can play, and children can collect, and children resonate with the characters. They've seen them on TV, they've seen them in video games. So,
can you review your trap card and talk about the next TCG?
So another game based on pop culture is the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. Yep. It's also got an avid anime following based on a manga. It's really, I would say it's the second biggest selling TCG. Okay. I would say that Pokemon is number one, and that Yu-Gi-Oh! May be tied with Magic as number two. It's a lot more complex than Pokemon and even Magic. It's sort of an engine building. Every card interacts with other cards in your deck in multiple ways, whether it's adding them to your hand, adding them to your graveyard, summoning extra monsters into play, using those as fuel to summon an extra guy from a different deck over there. It's really about, this is my big combo turn, and hoping that the minimal points that your opponent has of interaction aren't able to stop what you're trying to do. So it can be, here's my big turn, here's my set of monsters, my big guy, my protective guys. I'm going to stop what you're doing on your next turn. Hope you can't beat that, good luck.
Okay, yep.
Whereas in Pokemon, you can't do anything on your opponent's turn, and it's very like, I'm just going to set up my guy and attack. And in Magic, there's a lot of back and forth interaction. There's, I'm going to do this. Well, before you do that, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do this, and
yeah, there are layers of Magic.
exactly right. Yeah,
That's a judge joke. Layers is also the reason I never became a rules advisor. Fun fact.
they're important.
Yeah. So we got that. When we talk about Magic, it leads us into our next TCG, which is Flesh and Blood, because that's, I think some of the designers from that definitely came from a Magic background.
That's right. Flesh and Blood is New Zealand made. It's the newest of sort of the big four TCGs that I would say are a step ahead of the rest. You mentioned it was designed by Magic players, and that really shows in the gameplay. There's a lot of important decisions. The biggest thing that sets it aside from these older TCGs that I would say is that instead of drawing one card a turn and being limited in your decisions by that, every turn you draw until you have a certain number of cards in your hand. And you have that many cards for your opponent's turn to interact with them and on your turn to further your own gameplay.
Yeah, having played a couple of games, there's very much opportunity cost the game of like, I can use this to defend, to save my life, I can use this to power another spell, or I can cast it itself, and there's never, it feels like EDH, where EDH is you're always 1 mana short. Flesh and Blood feels like you're always a couple of cards short.
Yeah.
Is there any others that are at the moment that have caught your eye or that people might be interested in checking out?
So look, the ones that are based on pop culture and on fandoms tend to last a little longer. Final Fantasy trading card game that came out in, I want to say 2018, maybe 2017. That one's still kicking around. Digimon trading card game had a resurgence. It was a re-release. I want to say it was in 2019 as well. There's other ones that are not based on pop culture. I know that Battle Spirits Saga just released, I want to say, this year. Really big in Japan, and they've now released it to the Western audience, which is actually how Pokemon started and how Yu-Gi-Oh started. They actually released 3 years earlier in Japan than they did in the US. So that can be a good sign as well, that this game's survived with an existing fan base. Now let's see how the rest of the world takes it.
I think that was also another thing when we talk about different areas, we were talking the world, but I found it in even just Melbourne is, like, most stores that local game stores that do card games, you're going to have Magic events. And then you sort of see, okay, some of them will run Final Fantasy events and then a lot of them won't, or some of them will run. And it's interesting to see sort of the spread of like, okay, which stores, what communities have they built up that they're trying to encourage to play a certain game or are reformed and are playing a game, and you sort of see, oh, this is popping up at more and more stores, this game is growing.
Yeah, that's right. If you're starting a game store, let's say that there's 10,000 Magic players in Melbourne, that can support having another event on Monday nights. But if there's only, say, 1,000 Yu-Gi-Oh players in Melbourne, maybe Monday nights are already busy, maybe Tuesday nights are already busy, and you can only support it on Wednesdays, and that doesn't work for your store. And then maybe, say, Final Fantasy has 100 players, and there is no capacity for them to play in more events. So it's really, as you said, it's a good sign of how a game's health is going, is how many stores are picking it up, as well as how big those events are.
Jim, thank you very much for coming down and sort of going through some of the games that are out at the moment that people can explore. I guess everyone, good luck cracking some packs.
Thanks for having me, Liam.